Hey, Paul.
Hello, Fab.
How are you?
Good. You?
I'm very good, thanks. So today I'm the one who proposed the topic because you did a webinar last week, 2 weeks ago, on early end of February, and there's something that you mentioned in the webinar. And by the way, you said you would share it, so
And I did. I just sent it to you.
Okay, perfect. So we'll be able to post that on the podcast. But basically, there's something that you said in the show, and it's not the first time that you say it. And I've done like some, pipeline building training and certifications, and everybody always says it. And it's like salespeople need to help their prospects, right? That should be their main goal, right? Yep. And so, but part of it for me then feels, and maybe I'm too pragmatic, I don't know, maybe you need to explain it clearer, but there's a contradiction in some ways, because sales reps, their whole life is about numbers, right? The big one is obviously revenue or profit or sales or whatnot. Whoa, I don't know what's going on. Can you still see me?
Yeah, I can see you. I see you move. I see everything.
Perfect. I'm the one who's frozen. No worries. So everything's about revenue and conversion rates and number of calls they make every day and things like that. But then at the same time, there's what I perceive to be much more, I don't know, let's call it altruistic, which is like they need to go out and actually help the people that they're speaking with. And sometimes I feel like this focus on numbers and revenue and stuff like that could impede the helping process, at least for some reps in their state of mind, right?
Yes, I agree. And I think, I shouldn't say I think, I know that if you are truly empathetic to your client's goals, it'll help you reach your goals. So you said a word there that's very interesting. You talked about altruism. Altruism is when you just give without expecting anything back, right? And let's face it, business, there's very little of that, right? Even if I help you as a client, even if I want to help you as a client, I still need to get paid. I still want to get paid because this is what I do as a business to feed my family, feed myself, earn my keep. This being said, any sales representative that doesn't seek, any sales representative that wants repeat business and a good reputation, that doesn't seek to help his clients or doesn't enjoy or doesn't feel good at that part of it, will probably have most of the time a little bit more of a hard time moving forward. What do I mean by that? The doctor you go to gets paid, in Canada gets paid by the government, and in other countries gets paid by you. And if that's his sole motivation, you got to worry a little bit about his credentials or the outcome of the work. So what I mean by that, and it's in the webinar, I call it state of mind, is that if you go in somewhere and your client feels that all you're trying to do is push a product, and he might buy from you, you might become a supplier, and that might be great, and that's all they want, and that's okay. But to truly be a partner, to be consultative, to want to grow that relationship, you need to want to help them. You need to understand their business. And if you have true interest in making that move forward, the human being will feel that and will want to deal with you. And it's an interesting line, right? Because some people will create friendships that are bullshit just to be close to the clients. And at one point or another, it may fall apart, and often does. But if you're sincere in wanting to help your clients, and understand the limit to helping your clients. In other words, you're not just going to give without receiving. If there's a reasonable amount of give and take, but that you're truly aware of the fact that you're trying to help your clients, it'll put you in a state of mind that will make the client see that you're trying to help them, and you'll probably do a lot better in sales.
Right.
And let's put it in a B2C example, right? Let's talk about something very specific. When you go to the store, and you're buying from a car down to some piece of clothing. If you feel that that person's on commission, paid on commission, and is only trying to push something, usually most people are like, I'm out of here, unless you really need it and you'll buy it and you'll leave.
Right.
If you feel that that person has a genuine, they get a high from helping you, well, then it's a better relationship. When you walk into a bicycle store, a golf store, any sports store, and you're having a real conversation with you, you're connecting. When that person gets a high out of connecting and help you out, there's a better relationship and there's better trust. And that's the benefit, because human beings, we're emotional and we're pragmatic. And you said it before, your boss, your sales director is not going to tell you, are you being nice to your clients? But ultimately they should. And they should be saying, do you care about your clients? Because if you care about your clients, it's going to help you in achieving your goals. It's going to help you in doing those cold calls. It's going to help you in getting those sales. It's going to help you in hitting those numbers at the end of the month. Because if all you care about are those numbers and you're just hounding away, then it might break. I think we just lost Fab. So let's give him a second to come back on. So that's what it is, folks. It's that you're trying to create a connection. You're back. I'm happy you're back, Fab.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to connect, because there's two parts to the human being. There's obviously what you need, and it's what you can help them get.
Yeah.
And one's emotional and the other is very pragmatic. Right. So you need to have a balance of both, really. What it comes down to is you need to be a balanced human being that's not just totally altruistic, trying to help people for no reason at all of your own, which is fine if you're aware of that and it's logical. But if you're like that in sales, you probably won't do that well. And the other side is if you're totally greedy and you're just looking at the sell, the people will feel it. Yeah, it's a very cultural and social thing. And it's hard to gauge, Fab, but you feel it. You know it, and you feel it.
Yeah, there's something interesting you said, because obviously I don't know the ins and outs, but Best Buy a few years ago did review their model, right, where the people on the floor were no longer paid on commission, because people would feel that, right? They're just going to sell me the most expensive TV because that's where they get the most commission, and by removing the commission structure, they empowered in a way their employees to just be helpful and be there, and that was a way to fight against the online stuff and to have trusted advisors at the store that you can actually ask questions to. But then there is that line, right, but then isn't there a danger that these people on the floor, and again, I don't know Best Buy intimately, but that they're just being altruistic for the sake of altruistic at that point. And I guess what I'm trying to lead on to is that then don't we have to worry about or watch or review or think about anyway our compensation structure for salespeople? Because if I'm paid on commission, or commission is a big chunk of my income, isn't there at some point, might there be conflict between helping out and, because helping out might not always lead to the biggest commission, I'm guessing.
It depends. This I think leads all the way up to the vision and the mission of the company. If you work in a culture that is just trying to put out product, that is just trying to reach its numbers, and you have a mediocre product and you're just pushing, eventually it's gonna come back and bite you in the ass. And I can use a very concrete example. It's more B2C, but I'll use it anyways. The automotive industry, the American automotive industry, the North American automotive industry in the 70s and 80s, they were complacent. Cars were crappy. The product they were putting out was crappy. It just wasn't there. I would even say more 70s and 80s. And then when the European and Japanese market came in and the product started getting better, they needed to refocus because they had some real competition. So if your goal is just to sell, and you don't care what's going on, it's going to bite you in the ass, like it did with the American automotive companies in the 70s. If you care about your clients, I've never heard anyone say to me, and I know people are afraid of this, and I've never heard anyone say, "Oh, they spend too much time. We're losing money because you're taking too much time to explain something on the floor to a client," right? Look at Apple. You walk in there, there's like a million, what are they called? A million people waiting to help you out to sell you something.
Right.
The store's full, it's packed. The product is well, most of the time good. The interaction's wonderful. They've taken this to the maximum. You go in there, they don't walk away from you. They'll answer your questions. They're there to help you. And I think that's a perfect example of the extreme of doing it well. And you before offline, we were talking about a software company. You said, well, what if, I have the chance of selling the most expensive software to a company? Let's say it's a 3-tier. This is your example, so I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, let's say you're a hypothetical software company, 3 tiers, and the prospect or the potential clients you're speaking with is very excited about the top tier, right? This is what they want. It has all the stuff that they want in there and everything. But, you're a good salesperson, so you ask questions, you ask open-ended questions, and whatnot. And by doing all that, you start realizing that, wait a minute, the middle tier is probably more than enough. I think it's great that they have aspirations to go to the bigger tier, but for today, the middle tier makes most sense to them. But if I'm compensated solely on volume of sale, aren't I conflicted as a salesperson between trying to sell something that's ultimately not going to help the client as much as a smaller tier would?
Well, let's just put it this way. In the short term, if you still sell them the top tier, you'll make your bonus, everything will be fine. But if you keep doing this, eventually it's going to get out there that these guys charge a lot of money and they sell you things you don't need. The market, the market usually readjusts to say someone's going to come in and say these guys are gouging, they're ripping us off, and we're going to go in and offer cheaper. And that's what happened to the American automotive industry in the 70s. They're big prices, they were ripping people off, they're putting out crappy product. Someone came in and undercut them. The Japanese came and said, yeah, we'll offer you quality for a lot cheaper.
Right.
Or the same price.
Right.
So the market will readjust itself. And the other thing I'd say is it's not just about being kind, it is also about being realistic, right? I think human beings, and think about it in a relationship. Let's pull it out of sales a second. Think of that person you meet for the first time that just wants to do everything for you. They offer you dinner, they're doing everything, and they don't want anything back. It's almost weird when someone's too nice to you. You're always thinking, well, what do they want in return? Most human beings, I'm not talking about the extremes, I'm not talking about the extreme greedy or the extreme altruistic, but most human beings like to get something back in return. Yeah. In sales, what some people forget is they're just thinking what they want to put out there. They're just thinking about what they're going to get back. They're not thinking of what they're going to put out there. And most human beings get a certain happiness or content to having helped out their clients. Most people in sales. And if you don't feel that way, usually you're motivated by something else that will usually show. Let's say a sales sociopath, and all you care about is your sales. Shows eventually. Right. Particularly if you have competition. Listen, if you have no competition and you're selling the best product in the world, they'll probably buy it from you, but they'll say, yeah, I bought from the asshole because he's got a good product and I need it. Yeah. But they're still going to see you as the asshole, as the, oops, am I not supposed to say that in the podcast? As the unkind person.
No editing. It's too late. You can swear freely now from on to the end of the show.
And I think the sales directors and the companies, it boils down from the top of the company. If you're really if you're in survival mode, if you're in full-on cortisol mode, right? You're no oxytocin going on. You're just fearful for your company. The ownership's fearful. And they're just saying, go and sell, go and sell, go and sell. You're going to feel it, and it's going to have the opposite effect because people are going to think they're just trying to sell me something. They don't give a crap what happens in the end. Right. So most people have a sense of right and wrong and feel like, if I sell something, even though it's good for me, I want it to benefit my client. Right. I want the client to feel like they've got something that's going to help them move forward. Right. And I'm not, listen, there's always the outliers that do well, but usually the outliers eventually, they're not wonderful. Look, and there's some industries, I know some industries are a little strange, like the finance industry when they're selling certain products and whatnot. It's pretty because it's all about money, right? It's all about earning more. You're not helping people. It's very intangible. But most things that are sold, tangible or intangible, will help someone in the end, right?
Right.
So if you're in the stock market and all you're trying to do is make money, so that's sort of the other extreme, right?
Right. So then kind of going back to an initial question or point, then there is something on the shoulders of the leadership team to, maybe reviewing compensation exclusively is too limited, but there's definitely something, because if I'm seeing that my reputation is going down, or that maybe in the long run I'm selling less because my reps get the most commission out of selling the big product, so they're just pushing the big product, and the potential client doesn't feel helped and all that, it's going to impact your sales. So there is that prise de conscience. I don't know how to say that in English, but for a leadership to do.
Yeah, the conscientiousness, that the desire, what you're motivated by, and it shows in the end. And I'm sorry, but there's not many of those companies that survive long term. They might come up for the short term, but usually when competition sets in, the company that look, I'm not talking about gizmos and gadgets, but when you're in a B2B setting, the company where there's service involved, usually the company with service, if they have a competitive product, and they do it properly and they care about their clients, usually end up doing better, particularly in enterprise business, right? If you've got a controlled monopoly, no offense, but we know what controlled monopoly or oligopoly, like in Canada, you've got 4 telecom companies. Well, how well do they need to treat their clients? You go to any of the big telecom companies, so these kinds of things can have a large effect,
right,
on what comes out. If the American companies were allowed to full on come in and compete telecom in Canada, it would probably squash our big players, and the prices would go down and the service would go up because there's real competition. So in most businesses where there's true competition, I don't want to say altruism. It's not altruism.
No.
Caring about your client's objectives is important, because your client's going to figure out pretty fast if you don't care about their objectives.
So then there is an exercise to do in terms of like, how are we making our money? Like, how much profit is it? And is this drive for selling the top tier item really helping us out in the end, right? Because you're giving the example of Apple, like they make, so much profit off of each product, like that they're like, I don't need my salespeople, quote unquote, my retail store people to push product, because I'm selling enough online, I'm selling this, I'm making so much profit off of each one that I just want people to be able to come to my store, right? And I'm simplifying it. So I think even if you're in B2B, is looking at like your pricing structure to be like, do I need to compensate necessarily on the highest revenue gain, or do I need to compensate maybe on profitability, or I need to compensate maybe on client retention and things like that?
Well, and that's a whole other discussion, right, Fab? Because you really do you control behavior by how you compensate.
Right.
So if you're just trying to sell a top tier product that has no other value than it costs more, it's not very good. But if your tiers are really made to supply different, market segments, then it makes more sense. But if you're just trying to push someone into a more expensive tier because you make more money, I don't know. I don't know how great that's going to be long term. It's going to come back and bite you, particularly when we're using the software example, right? Because there's there's many, I don't know, maybe there's not a lot of regulation in the general software industry. Maybe there is probably in certain types of industry, but if all you're trying to do is really just sell the top tier product to make more money. So for example, if you're buying something that has a lot more features and those bells and whistles make a difference, then great. But if those bells and whistles make no difference and you're just pushing it on, people usually catch on eventually, and they get a little angry and they get out of it, unless they're stuck and they have to buy it.
And sometimes the bells and whistles
Canadian broadcasters, you can't just pick and choose a few stations. Well, they did it a few years ago. They deregulated, but it was very hard before that. And you pay a lot more for your package when you pick and choose, because again, they're a controlled monopoly and they're fighting with the Americans, so that's a controlled environment. But if you're looking at something that's totally non-legislated and totally open, the market will come and get you. if you're not being kind.
Right. So, and maybe we can close off on this, because we always try to close off at least part of the conversation has to be tactical and applicable. What advice can you give to business leaders? Because they might not always be aware, right, that their compensation structure or their sales structure or whatnot, or their culture is not about helping. What are some of the things that leaders could do to be aware of what's being emphasized, like what behavior is being emphasized?
Okay, so first thing, if you're doing a consultative complex sale and you're not trying to help your client, it's going to bite you in the ass, right? So if you don't understand your client's motivations, and if your compensation is not geared towards your salespeople helping their clients, then it's going to come back and get you. So first thing is compensate based on logic, compensate based on the behavior you're looking for. So if you want people to take care of their clients, you might, it really depends. You might do larger base, smaller commission. If it's a great product that's almost a commodity product and you just want them to sell more of it, you might do a lot more commission, less base. Depending on the complexity of the product, sometimes it's hard to pay commission because a lot of people involved. So that's a whole other discussion. But truly, this is a training situation. If you look at the better salespeople in the world, most of them care about the outcome to their clients.
Right.
Most of them care or take the time to understand how this is going to benefit their client.
Right.
Because they connect with the client. They make the client realize how this is good for them by asking them the right question and by figuring out what the motivation is. And if you're not doing that, you're doing yourself a disservice first, and you're doing your client a disservice as well.
Right.
And I say first because obviously you got to feed your family, you got to feed yourself. So tactically speaking, if you're a business owner, you have to think really hard about how your business helps your clients.
Right.
You gotta make sure you're asking the questions to find that out. And eventually what the prime motivation to buy is, like, why are they buying? What are they trying to achieve? Right. And how do you fit in there and how do you help them get there?
Yeah. Okay.
Is that tactical enough?
I think so. As tactical as it'll get, I think. All right. Thanks, Paul. This was interesting. Awesome. And hopefully the week after this, we'll be able to show your webinar recording. That would be fun.
I just sent it to you.
Awesome.
Perfect. Thanks.
Everybody, take care.
Bye.